Hi, this is Dr. Christopher Maloney, Naturopathic Doctor. I'm going to talk to you about environmental toxicity. Now, what happens here in Maine is that I'll have patients come in, and some of them have been educated in this process, and they're terrified. And they don't see they see the toxins everywhere. It's very much a daily thing for them. There's a lot of other people that come in and they aren't aware of any of the possibilities. So their whole basement is full of black mold, and they aren't really clear that that might be causing their respiratory illnesses. So there's really two ranges. On the West Coast, we saw a lot more people. When I was in there, we saw a lot more people that were very aware of the possibility of environmental toxicity. So I'm all for, so there's the range of, I don't even know what I'm doing, anything about this, to I'm freaking out about this all the time, to I'm aware of it. I am very much for awareness. I am not for freaking out. The process, there are patients that I have actually clinically tested. They are susceptible to electromagnetic radiation of all kinds. They just makes them, it's like an allergy. I don't understand why their body wired themselves that way. That's what they've got. It's a burden and a task, and they've really legitimately got some problems there. There's a lot of other people that have their body has gotten hyper-responsive to a range of things. They really are chemically sensitive. They're sensitive to a lot of volatile chemicals and perfumes. They're really bothered by that. There's far more people that are affected by dust and mold and spores and things that creep into Maine houses during the winter and stay there for months and months and months and months. There are a lot of other people that are somewhat affected by a few foods. There's the people who, all of us, the entire spectrum, are affected by the plume of air that's coming from the Midwest every winter. We're getting all kinds of particles when you go outside in the house, the main houses. You can wipe them down after a day, and it's just black with soot. And that soot's not necessarily local. A lot of that soot's coming from all the population centers further south. And you can look at the prevailing winds patterns, and you can say, this is what the EPA says. This is not, some kind of conspiracy theory. This is an idea that this is really the prevailing wind patterns. You can see the particulate coming down on given days. So we're all affected by that. We're all affected by, car fumes, the different compounds that are in our food. And for the most part, when someone says don't worry about it, for the most part, we really, of the 70,000+ compounds that we've actually generated in labs and are using in our daily lives, only maybe 200 to 400 of them have really been explored as possibilities for toxicity. So there's a whole bunch more compounds out there that are really probably toxic to us, and you need to avoid if you can, but it's also a toss-up because no one else can say that's causing this problem. You have to say, well, we haven't done any of the testing on that. That killed rats, or if you have done testing, it killed rats in a test tube, or killed rats and it was bad in test tubes, but we just haven't seen what happens in humans. It's also true that we all have a certain level of toxic load. When you look at pregnant women's, when breast milk first comes out, all of it has DDT in it. All of it has, breakdown products of previous pesticides and herbicides that we've been using. So there is a toxic load that exists. Now, but that doesn't, suddenly we're all over on the other side, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. Like, the problem is that there's always been a toxic load. When you look at an Aboriginal tribe or people in New Guinea, you go into their huts and they've got a central smokestack, and the hut is black inside because they have the central fire there. And you look at their lungs and they look like chain smokers. And you say, well, but that they are living I'm like, yes, they're living a very natural lifestyle, and they're getting an enormous amount of particulate matter because of the thing that they had to do there. So the idea that we've moved away from wood smoking primarily as a thing, or an open fire anyway, has actually helped the lung fields to some extent. So it's back to awareness. You have to understand that there are going to be certain things that really impact your health. Should you minimize those things as much as you can within reasonable limits? I have the patients who are way over here on the edge of the spectrum who have isolated themselves out from society. They don't go out anymore. They don't do anything. They're not really part of our society anymore. They have, and in most cases there are compromises that they are able to make, that they could make, but at this point it's not worth it to them. That they're more involved with the disease process than they are with society. But I feel sad because I want those people to be able to come back into the society. And I have the same people, I have other people who are equally impacted, who are out there in society every day doing what they can do, dealing with the problems. And there's a lot of things you can do to deal with the exposures if you have that problem. But they're still actively engaging in our society. And for the most of us, the majority of us, the issue is simply to be aware of the possibility that this could be bothering you. Once you're aware of that, you might think, geez, hey, I might want to vary what I'm doing. And my answer is yes, you do. You want to vary it if you can make choices that, away from, what's the current thing? The current thing is the plastic bottle's not such a good plan, maybe back to metal. I'm like, well, as soon as we do the metal for a while, what's going to happen is we're like, okay, well, now there's tin buildup or there's nickel buildup in people and we need to stop doing the metal. That's why we went to the plastic to begin with. So the plastic bottle thing, and say, well, should I drink from a ceramic cup? I'm like, yeah, ceramics, we pretty much, unless it's got lead lining in it or something. But glass has been shown to be pretty inert and probably the best of all possible worlds, although it's heavy and it can break. So, there's your downside. But at the same time, if you said, well, what should I be really pushing myself toward? I'd say drinking from glass containers whenever possible is probably a good plan. Should I go out and buy a reverse osmosis 3000? Sorry, reverse osmosis people, but you guys are the most expensive version out there. My answer is a small Brita filter will take out almost all of the heavy metals in your drinking water. It's not great, but it's also inexpensive, and you can replace it. And what I see is over and over again, people taking these very expensive filters, buying them once, and leaving them in for year after year after year, and that's nasty. After a while, you're going to get some stuff building up in the pipes there. So reverse osmosis, again, I'm not a fan, sorry guys, because a lot of water is wasted in the process, and it's a very expensive thing for people to do. My answer is have your water tested, especially if you're in wells. If you're using wells, here in Maine we have a lot of arsenic in the ledge. So you could literally have arsenic in your well water, and that's a really specific thing to be watching out for. Or you could have bacterial overgrowth that you're just not aware of, that these bacteria are basically, you're kind of low-grade infected all the time. So these are basic things that, someone would say, well, about water, what about food? I'm like, if it's less than twice as expensive, buy organic, especially the specific foods that are high in pesticides. And you say, well, what? I'm like, I really prefer the organic vegetables, like the lettuces, even over the fruits, because the fruits you can wash them off pretty well, but the lettuces, it's hard to get a good cleaning off of that. So if you're getting a lot of pesticides, go for the organic lettuce, but only if it's less than twice as expensive, because again, I find that people will buy these little tiny pieces of lettuce. Oh, it's pure and good. I'm like, but it's half a salad. You need to have, if you're going to do that salad, you want to actually have a good quantity. So there's really a range of moderation, of awareness, but then, hey, this is what the world looks like now. We're going to do the best we can to live through it, to deal with it as best we can. It's just one of many, many factors in our health. It is not the end. It's not the, don't spend your whole life chasing environmental toxicity. Do the best you can to live your life as well as you can. And if you are impacted by it, then come and talk to somebody about how to minimize your impact. But I'm really not a fan of this kind of frenzied, I have to clean myself out every week or whatever. I'm like, that is actually detrimental to your mental health and your ability to deal with society and your ability to deal with your community. So that's my take on environmental toxicity. All right. Thanks. This is Dr. Christopher Maloney, Naturopathic Doctor in Augusta, Maine. Thanks.